Hello, today we're discussing Parsha Tisa. Very dramatic Parsha, you will see very soon why. God commands Moses to take census of the Jewish adults, male population, by collecting an atonement offering of half a silver shekel from each individual. And then those shekels were melted down, and rings for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, were made from this silver. Rings, the sockets for the beams. And then God tells Moshe how to make a copper wash stand for the tabernacle, for the Kohanim to wash their hands and feet, as a matter of fact, as well. God tells Moses the recipe of making holy anointing oil, and this oil will be used to anoint and sanctify the tabernacle itself and all its vessels, and Aaron and his sons. And the remaining amount of the oil was put aside and was used to anoint future kings and high priests for future generations. God enriches Bezalel with wisdom and appoints him to be the chief craftsman and builder of the tabernacle and of all of its content. And he appoints Ahaliab as his assistant. And then there is a very clear statement for Jewish people and clear order from Hashem to observe Shabbat. And it serves as an eternal sign between him and the children of Israel. Moshe ascends the mountain, goes up in the mountain, where he remained for 40 days to study Torah and to receive the first tablets from Hashem, the tablets of Torah. What happens is an unfortunate set of events. Jews miscalculate when Moses is supposed to return, and when he doesn't appear on the day which they believed he should appear, they anticipate his arrival. The panic takes place amongst Jewish people, and they basically demand Aaron, who was left in charge, to make them a new god, because they believed that Moshe, he was an old man, and he was for 40 days there up in the mountain with God. And there were some signs, they saw some signs of Moshe's funeral up in the sky, and to make a long story short, they want a new god, an idol, basically. And they forced, basically, Aaron to allow them to collect gold and to mold a golden calf, which has emerged from the flames. Aaron was hoping that he will simply delay time until Moshe finally will arrive, and then Moshe will fix up all the problems. But he didn't quite manage to get Moshe to come. Moshe didn't come down in time at which Aaron sort of anticipated as well. God obviously knows what's going on down there, and he says to Moshe, you should go down, for your people have sinned. And Moshe pleads with God to forgive Jews for their sin, even though he hasn't seen yet what's happened. God eventually agrees to cancel his plan to annihilate all the Jews and basically start again from Moshe himself only. So when Moshe comes down with the tablets, he sees the golden calf, and he breaks the tablets, and he enlists the tribe of Levi to punish the primary offenders, and 3,000 of idol worshippers were executed on that day. Moshe ascends again to Mount Sinai, and in an attempt to get God's complete forgiveness, complete atonement. And God insists that He Himself will not lead Jews personally, and He will send an angel to lead them towards the promised land. And seeing God's displeasure with Jews, Moses takes his own tent and pitches it outside of the Israelite camp. And then this tent becomes the center of study and spirituality until the tabernacle is inaugurated later on. Moshe asks God to reconsider the matter of an angel, and he pleads with God for God Himself to lead Jewish people. And then Moshe requests God's presence, that the presence should never manifest itself on any other nation other than the Jews. And God agrees with Moshe. He requests, basically, he tells Moshe to build a place where he will be able to dwell amongst the Jews, which is the tabernacle, the Mishkan. Moses requests to be shown, and Moshe, seeing that things are going very well, so he requests to be shown God's glory. He wants to see God's face. God agrees, but informs Moshe that he will only be shown his back, but not his face. God tells Moshe to carve out new tablets upon which God will engrave the 10 Commandments. And Moshe takes them, those new tablets, up to Mount Sinai, and where God reveals His glory to Moshe. And while he is doing that, he is proclaiming the 13 attributes of mercy, which are the part of Jewish daily prayers, as a matter of fact. God seals a covenant with Moshe, assuring him that His presence will only dwell with the Jews. He instructs the Jewish people to destroy all aspects of idolatry from the land of Israel, and to refrain from making any covenants with the locals, any agreements with the locals. And then Jews were commanded not to make any molten gods, idols, basically, and instructed to observe 3 festivals: Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And in the same parsha we read that about the order not to eat chametz on Passover, and the requirement to sanctify all male firstborn humans and cattle, not to mix meat and milk. And in the last part of the parsha, Moshe descends from Mount Sinai with the second set of tablets, and he does not realize that his face is beaming with light, and he's projecting light of Hashem. And Aaron people originally afraid of him. And Moshe teaches, eventually they settle all of this down, and Moshe teaches the people of the Torah. He studied in the mountains, and while he wears a veil, and he removes it only when he is speaking to God, and when he is repeating God's words to people. And that's what this parsha is all about. Everything I'm going to say the next few minutes, I learned from the articles and teachings of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And there are a lot of mysteries in this parsha, but probably one of the most important ones is in the chapter 33 of this parsha, Exodus 33. It contains very interesting aspects of Torah. In this chapter, set in the middle of the golden calf story, between the chapter naturally 32, describing the scene of the golden calf and the consequences of it, and the chapter 34, where God's revelation to Moses of the 13 attributes of mercy. And obviously describes this chapter 34, the second set of tablets and the renewal of the covenant. It is, I believe, this mystery it frames the shape of Jewish spirituality. This is what Rebbe Jonathan Sachs is saying, that this specific mystery associated with this chapter 33. What makes it perplexing? First, that it's not really clear what this is all about. What was Moshe doing here? Look, this is what's going on. In the previous chapter, he had already prayed twice for the people to be forgiven. And in chapter 34, he prays for forgiveness again. So, what then was he trying to achieve in chapter 33? And the second thing is Moshe requests, they are very strange. He says, show me your ways and show me now your glory. This seems to, these requests look like a personal spiritual learning, mystical experience, than a request for forgiveness. That's what they read like, when you're reading them. And it appears that they have to do with Moshe, everything to do with Moshe as an individual, not with the people on whose behalf he was praying. When you understand that this is a nation in crisis, they just committed a grave sin only 40 days after receiving the Torah. God is angry, people were traumatized, and the whole nation was in disarray, right? Now, so this was not really a very good time for Moshe to ask for a seminar in theology and in spirituality. It doesn't look like it's appropriate time to do that. The other aspect of this is that the narrative here looks like it's back to front in time. Because in the verse 4, for example, it says, no man put on his ornaments. And then the next verse, God says, now then remove your ornaments. And in verse 14, God says, my presence will go with you. And then in verse 15, Moses says, if your presence does not go with us, do not make us leave this place. In both cases, time seems to be reversed. And the second sentence is basically responded to the events which took place before. The Torah is clearly drawing our attention to something which is important. But what is it? And if we add to this mystery the golden calf itself, what was it? Was it an idol or was it not an idol? The text states that the people said, this Israel is your God who brought you out of Egypt, pointing at the golden calf. But it also says that they sought the calf because they did not know what had happened to Moses, to Moshe. Were they seeking a replacement for him or for God? What was their sin? They really sinned because they built an idol. And on top of all of this, what is actually why the story of the golden calf is in between the very detailed descriptions of how to build the Mishkan, which we discussed in the previous parsha. So there is this mystery. What is the relationship between the golden calf and the Mishkan, the sanctuary? And on top of this, there is this troubling situation where Moshe, after all of this, takes his stand outside of the camp. What has this to do with the relationship between people of Israel and God? And because of the story of the golden calf. In any way, when people are in disarray, it's the worst thing a leader should do is to remove himself further away from the people. Under those circumstances, what did he do? God has just announced that I will not go in your midst in chapter 33:3. And at this the people were deeply distressed and they went into mourning. So Moses then leaves the camp and must have, the fact that he leaves the camp must be most demoralizing for people. There are many ways to explain this cryptic text, but Rabbi Sachs gives this most powerful and simple interpretation. Moshe was making his most audacious prayer, and it's so cheeky, it's so audacious, really so strong that the Torah does not even state it clearly, directly. We have to reconstruct it from the few words and clues here and there. The previous chapter implied that people panicked because of absence of Moshe, their leader. God himself implied as such when he said to Moses, "Go down because your people whom you brought out of Egypt have become corrupt," which basically he says they've fallen down. The suggestion is that Moshe's absence or distance was the cause of the sin, which, they panicked because he wasn't there. And it sounds like Hashem saying you should have stayed closer to the people. Moshe took God's point and he went down and he did punish the guilty and he broke the tablets. He did pray for God to forgive people, and that was the theme of the chapter 32. But then in chapter 33, having a restored order with the people, amongst the people, Moshe now began an entirely new approach. He was in effect saying to God, what the people need is not me to be close to them. I'm just a human being and I'm not forever. I'm here today and tomorrow I'm gone. I will die. But you are the eternal God. They need you. They need you to be close to them. It was as if Moses was saying, until now, they have experienced you as a terrifying force, delivering plagues in Egypt, destroying the biggest empire on the planet at that time, bringing the world's greatest empire to its knees, basically, dividing the sea, overturning the orders of nature, basically. At Mount Sinai, merely hearing your voice, people were overwhelmed, and they were asking basically for me to take the additional parts of the Ten Commandments, because they couldn't bear hearing your voice, because that's how powerful it was. The people needed, Moshe said, to experience not the greatness of God, but his closeness of God. Not God heard in thunder and lightning at the top of the mountain, but as a daily presence in the valley below. This is why Moshe removed his tent and pitched it outside the camp, as if to say to God, it is not my presence that people want. They want you in their midst. They want to be with you. They want you there. To this, God replied in a highly structured way. First, he said, you cannot understand my ways. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy to whom I will show mercy. He says that in 33:19. There is an element of divine justice that must always be beyond human comprehension. We cannot fully enter into the mind of another human being Never mind entering the mind of God, creator of the universe. The second thing is you cannot see my face, God says, for no one can see my face and live. Humans can at the best see my back. Even when God intervenes in history, we can see his intervention only afterwards, only after, looking back. And when Stephen Hawking saying that if we decode every scientific mystery, we will know the mind of God, he is totally wrong. We cannot know the mind of God, even because there always will be a mystery. And then the third statement God makes, he says, you cannot see my glory. That is what Moshe asked for once he realized that he could never see God's face. God shows him only his back. We do not know at this stage exactly what it meant by God's glory. But we discover that at the very end of the book of Exodus, chapter 35-40, describe how Israelites built the Mishkan. When it was finished and assembled, we read this. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the Mishkan. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the Mishkan. You now understand the entire drama set in motion by the making of the golden calf. Moshe pleaded with God to come closer to the people so that they would encounter him on a daily basis. And not only as a force that threatens to obliterate anything which is against it, but as a presence that can be sensed in the heart of the camp. That is why God commanded Moshe to instruct the people to build the Mishkan. It is what he meant when he said, let them make me a sanctuary and I will dwell among them. Veshachanti, among them. The word Shekhinah, meaning the divine presence, basically has got the same root as Shuchen, and it's in Yiddish and in Hebrew means neighbor. Applied to God, it means the presence that is that close as a neighbor. The entire building of the Mishkan was a divine response to the sin of the golden calf, and as an acceptance by God of Moshe's plea that he, God, should come closer to people. We cannot see God's face. We cannot understand God's ways, but we can encounter God's glory whenever we build a home on earth for his presence. That is an ongoing miracle of Jewish spirituality. Not any religion before birth of Judaism ever envisaged God in such a way, where it's an awe-inspiring way, basically. God is more distant than the farthest stars from us, and at the same time, he is so close to us, he is in our heart, he is inside us. No religion has ever felt God to be closer than this. And even in Tanakh, which are written, Tanakh books are written later, the prophets argue with God in books of Psalms. King David speaks to him in terms of utmost intimacy as well. In the Talmud, God listens to the debates between the sages and accepts their rulings, even if sometimes they go against the voice of Hashem. God's relationship with Israel, said the prophets, is like that between a parent and a child, or like between a husband and a wife. That is one of the striking differences between the synagogues and the cathedrals of the Middle Ages. In a cathedral, you sense the vastness of God, the enormity of His power, and the smallness of a humankind. But in the little synagogues in Prague, or in synagogues of the Ari or the Kabbalists in Tzfat, the Joseph Kara's synagogue in Tzfat, you sense the closeness of God to people and the potential greatness of the humankind. In chapter 33, between the lines, we learn that the religion has never ever held God higher, but none has ever felt Him closer as well. That is what Moshe has achieved in Exodus 33, in his most daring conversation with God. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next parsha.